Children of the River, Chapter 7. So, how about it? Jonathan said. We could go to the movies if you want, whatever. Oh. She looked away from him across the patio, stalling for time. A date? He was actually asking her out on a date. A picture flashed in her mind. Jonathan on the doorstep, like in the TV commercials. Naro and Soka looking over him, making him promise to bring her home on time. No, never in 1,000 years. She turned back to Jonathan. Thank you, but I can't. Come on, don't you like me? Her cheeks burned. You teasing. He knew very well she liked him. Sorry, he smiled. Not sorry at all. But what's the problem? She bit her lip. I'd like to go with you, but in my country, we don't go out on date at all. Still he smiled, refusing to take her seriously. How do you figure out who you want to marry then? Our parents arranged. The boy's mother asked the girl's mother. But that's archaic. She lifted her chin. My family would choose well for me, and my mother and father, they very happy together. Even they see each other the first time on their wedding day. Yeah? He sounded skeptical. She shifted away from him. If the family make a good match, two people can grow to love each other. Our system not so bad. She gave him a side look. In Cambodia, we do not talk divorce every time somebody get mad. Hey, I didn't mean to sound critical. It's just that things are different here. Yes, she said, softening, but not for me. His smile had faded. He seemed bewildered. So you really won't go out with me? Jonathan, I shouldn't even have lunch with you. To go to the movie? I'm sorry, I just can't. He blinked at a loss. Well, I guess if that's the way you feel. She thought about Kathy, about the other girls who gave him admiring glances. Perhaps no one had ever turned him down before. He looked so hurt. But was she supposed to throw away the traditions of centuries to save the feelings of one American boy? Of course not. Still, imagine, to openly say to the world, yes, I want to be with him and he wants to be with me. To venture into public, the two of them alone together for all to see. No, of course not. But she couldn't pretend she hadn't felt it, a surprising little thrill of temptation. After PE one day, Sundara and Kelly were dressing amid clouds of steam and deodorant spray when Kathy Gates started talking about Jonathan on the other side of the lockers. Leave it to me, she said. I'll get him to do the rally skit. I wouldn't count on it, Kath. Craig says Jonathan's acting kind of weird lately. Well, he's my boyfriend, Kathy said. I ought to know him better than Craig Keltner does. My boyfriend. Something welled up in Sundara. How easily those words slipped off this girl's tongue. What's the matter? Kelly said. Sundara had stopped dressing and was standing still, her head tilted. She laid a finger across her lips and glanced towards the lockers. I've told you, Kathy's voice came again. He's just working on a class project with her, and the only reason he's doing it at lunch is because he didn't get lunch period with us. Believe me, it's nothing. Nothing. Had Jonathan actually said that? Kelly leaned close to Sundara. Are they talking about you? Sundara nodded grimly. Perhaps it was as Soka said. There was an order to things. Family must come first. Bloodlines must not be broken. Destroy the order and it will destroy you. She opened her heart just the tiniest bit to an American boy, and already this had given Kathy's words the power to tear her apart. She resumed buttoning her blouse. Kathy's friend said something Sundara couldn't catch. Then Kathy laughed in that easy, confident way she had. Sundara flushed. Maybe she was just a class project to Jonathan. She hadn't thought so, especially when he'd asked her out. But what did she understand about American boys? As Kathy said, he was her boyfriend. She was the one who really knew him. Kathy and her friends slammed their lockers and left. What's going on? Kelly asked. Sundara clicked the padlock to her gym basket. Jonathan McKinnon, her boyfriend, but he asked me to have lunch with him every day. So that's where you've been, Kelly stared in awe. Then she bounced up from the bench. Well, does he like you or what? This is really incredible. Sundara raised her eyebrows. This is such a shock that he can like me. No, I didn't mean it that way. It's just that Jonathan McKinnon, if he ever even looked at me, I'd probably melt into a helpless little puddle. And he likes you? She peered at Sundara, trying to push her glasses up by wrinkling her nose. I don't get it. You just don't look the way a normal, sane girl ought to look if Jonathan McKinnon likes her. Oh, Kelly, not so simple for me. Better he doesn't like me. I'm so scared. My family hear about this, they're going to be mad. Who cares, Kelly said. For a boy like him, I'd let my parents completely disown me. Sundara had to smile. Kelly was so funny. But she could afford to talk this way. For her, being thrown out wasn't a real possibility. So what's he really like? Kelly wiggled her eyebrows. Up close and personal. I mean, what do you guys talk about? Well, he wanted to know about my life in Cambodia. Sure, but what about Kathy? Is he going to break up with her? Oh, we never talk about that. Sometime he talk about football. He's such a big star, but I don't think he's so happy about it. Really? That's weird. Sundara closed her locker and leaned back on it. Kelly, will your parents let you go on a date? Let me? Are you kidding? My mother would die for me to have a date. She's always bugging me about boys, and believe me, I don't appreciate being reminded I don't have anything to hide. Sundara sighed. I have something to hide, and it scares me to death. In spite of her fears, Sundara found herself letting Jonathan fall in step behind her every day after international relations. Then she would follow him with her lunch tray to their special place on the patio. She watched herself doing this day after day, almost if she were watching someone else. So daring, yet somehow the risk made her moments with Jonathan all the sweeter. Then one day, when she had almost grown complacent, her luck ran out. I never understand why the American student, so noisy in class, she was telling Jonathan as they finished their lunches. Don't they want a good education? Sure, I guess, but in my country, you get goofy like that, whap whap. You gonna get it with a stick on your back. They beat you? Oh yes, or one teacher I have, he pinched your ear like this. She demonstrated, pretending to yank her gold earrings. Sounds pretty rough. Well, they don't have to do that too much because most students have good behavior. They know they must learn. They're going to be in big trouble at home if their parent find out they're not respecting the teacher. But here, she shook her head, even you, I'm shocked when you get so sassy, ask so many questions. Like yesterday in international relations when everybody argued, that made me kind of nervous. That was just a good discussion. Landgren wants everyone to get involved. He like it when the student argue with him? In my country, you don't even dare ask the teacher to repeat if you don't understand. That like saying he doing a bad job of explaining. Same thing if somebody your boss. But if everybody's always pretending they understand when they don't, doesn't that lead to lots of misunderstandings? She frowned. Sometime. But we don't like to argue about that face to face. We rather smooth it over, keep everything nice, try to understand without having a, what you call it? A confrontation? Yes, that's the word. I'm shocked when the American argue so much. Why you do this? Beats me. I didn't know we did. Maybe we're just used to saying what we think. But sometimes that's so rude. He laughed. Hey, Sundara, guess what? What? You're arguing. Oh, you always make fun of... She stopped dead. Across the patio, poked Simone with his Chinese friend. She held her breath, willing herself invisible. He hadn't seen her yet, but then his friend spotted her. He nudged Poke Simone. Poke Simone took his in their little scene. The lunch trays on the bench, the notepads unopened, his eyes narrowed to a hard glare. She turned away, trembling. What fate! Of all the people to walk by and find her alone with the white skin, for Poke Simone would love nothing better than to get her in trouble. You know him? Jonathan asked. She nodded, feeling sick. He's a Khmer also. Poke Simone resented the fact that her uncle had risen to the position of accountant while his father, once a high military attaché, now worked as a janitor. He resented even more Sundara's proud way of walking through the halls, her refusal to give him the deferential nod due one of high rank. Sundara shivered. He would savor of his revenge in spreading this story. Is he gone yet? Yeah, he took off, but what's his problem? She shook her head distractingly. Better if she had humbly bowed to Poke Simone each time they passed in the school halls, declaring herself lower than the dust beneath his feet. Now, for holding her head high, she would pay. Because what would Soka do if word of a white skin reached her ears? News traveled fast among the Cambodians. Sundara did not expect to be kept in suspense long. The following morning, her aunt's voice, harsher than usual, rudely ended Sundara's dream, a dream that somehow combined the warmth of Jonathan's smile with the softness of the night of Phnom Penh. Which was worse, the shattering nightmares or waking up from such loveliness at the snap of Sokka's voice? Cold fear rushed through her as she remembered the previous day. Was it possible her aunt had already heard the Pokemon story? Sundara took her quick turn in the bathroom, washing her face, touching on some makeup, staring at her reflection. Did she look like a wicked girl, a girl who ate lunch alone with a boy? She would miss talking with him. Never before had anyone seemed so interested in her life, her feelings. What a relief it had been to speak of things so long held inside. When she came into breakfast wearing jeans and a jade green blouse, Sokka gave her one of those accusing looks. You spend a lot of time on yourself lately. Sundara swallowed. She had taken extra care in winding the ends of her hair around the curling iron, but her clothes were nothing special, except in comparison to Sokka. Sokka refused to buy clothes for herself, in which Sundara would also refrain, but Sundara didn't want to dress out of the charity boxes as she'd had to at first. What fate! All those horrible pantsuits with stretchy material, they were nothing like what the other girls were wearing. Not that she'd ever missed looking exactly like everyone else as she had at home, skipping to school each day in a blue shirt and white blouse. It was just that now she wanted to fit in with the Americans. She wanted jeans and tops like everyone else. Little ones, come eat. Sokka had set their places to eat around the table Western style. Now she poured the sugary cereal the boys had seen advertised on television. Pon punched off his cartoons and carried in the jar of straw flowers he'd been wiring for Mr. Bonner's wife. He carried 2 cents for each stem he attached. He earned 2 cents for each stem he attached. Wonderful, Sokka said. At least $3 worth. What a clever son. She gave his cheek a quick nuzzle. Ravi, here is your note for the school. What's this? Naro wanted to know as Ravi stuffed the paper in the back pocket of his jeans and sat down. The school called, Sokka said. They wanted me to write a permission so he can play football after school. Football? Ravi, why do you want to smash into other people? It's flag football, Papa, not tackle. You just yanked the flag out of the other guy's pocket. Sundara and Ravi exchanged glances. She knew very well he could hardly wait to play tackle. Talking to these people at his school is like pouring water on a duck's back, Sokka complained. No matter how many times I tell them, I cannot make them understand that I am not Mrs. Tepp. There is no Mrs. Tepp. I am Kim Sokka. I tell them on the phone yesterday, but it does no good. You should give up trying to put Kim first, Naro said. It only confuses them. She took a seat. Well, I can understand that. But why is it so difficult for them to understand a married woman keeping the name she was born with? They invented this woman's limb, didn't they? Not us. Haven't you learned yet? Naro said. This is their country. They don't care about our ways. We are expected to imitate them. And some of their ways I don't mind, but I'll tell you one thing. These children of ours must not become too American. She took each of them into her eyes. We don't want these bad things happening to our children of this family. Drinking, drugs, getting pregnant. Sundara's face got hot. She couldn't help it. Sokka's black eyes boring into her like that. It was her aunt's vague suspicions. If her aunt's vague suspicions were this hard to endure, imagine how terrifying to face her wrath at the truth. Her cousins had gobbled their cereal and excused themselves. They went back down the hall to collect Ravi's homework papers and Pon's toy motorcycle for the first grade show and tell. The best American idea, as far as I'm concerned, Sokka went on, is a man being allowed only one wife at a time. She gave Naro a pointed look, then turned back to Sundara. At home, niece, if you get good husband who makes a lot of money, there will always be younger women coming around wanting to be wife number 2, a terrible nuisance. Sundara kept her eyes on her noodles, unable to enjoy the rare hint of intimacy in Sokka's voice. Even if this old quarrel had lost its heat for Sokka and Naro, it still served as an ominous reminder of her aunt's temper. To this day, Sundara recalled overhearing her own parents discussing it, something about a younger woman, and Sokka taking an axe to Naro's prized motorcycle. Sundara shuddered. Sokka was not a good person to cross. And how treacherously close Sundara always felt to Sokka's anger. It was do this, don't do that, every minute of the day. Now that Soka had her food service job at the university, she seemed to have completely forgotten how much she had depended on Sundara the first year, how much Sundara had helped her, answering the phone, going to the door while Soka cowered in the bedroom as if expecting to be dragged away. For a while, Sundara had hoped all this might win Soka's forgiveness for the baby's death, but when Soka became strong again and unafraid, she also turned meaner than ever, as if blaming Sundara for her own period of helplessness. Now her aunt spoke to Gnarl with excessive sweetness. "You're better off here, I think, where you can't talk to other women so much." "You mean you're better off," he teased. "You know you ought to watch how much you become American, little sister. You've put yourself high enough in this family as it is." "Too bad," Soka replied, suppressing a smile, jutting her chin out at him. "Oh, niece," Naro said with mock weariness, "why do my parents match me with such a sassy woman?" Soka smiled broadly at this. She had good, even teeth and a very nice look about her, Sundara thought, when she was joking with someone she liked. And they all knew Nara was only teasing, for Soka had proven a good wife to him, especially after their first year in America, when he sank into depression. He, who had supported so many relatives at home, shamed by having to send his wife to work. But while he brooded in silence those long months, waiting for time to heal his spirit, Soka had been the most loyal and loving of wives. Now he grinned at her. "At least she is better than the wife of Polksari." He jerked up his arms as if to ward off her blow. "Ha, you better think so." "I saw the two of them yesterday," he said. "Let me tell you, this is what I like about America. Here I don't have to bow down to them. You should have heard them boasting about that son of theirs. It makes me tired." Sundara's pulse raced at the mere mention of Polk Simone. Nervously she rose to fill her bowl again, hoping they wouldn't notice her hand shaking. "You would think," Soka said, "that if they were so high class, they would have the good manners not to brag." Naro nodded. "I've often thought that myself. I don't know how many times I've heard about their big brick house in Phnom Penh, their car, how everybody wanted to be their friend." "I suppose we should try to be understanding," Soka said. "Perhaps we would feel the same way if we fell so low from so high up, but still." "Where's grandmother?" Sundara said. "Not well again?" Soka turned in her chair and gave Sundara one of those measuring looks. Had her attempt to change the subject been too obvious? But to Sundara's relief, Soka merely sighed. "She doesn't want to eat. She doesn't even want to get out of bed today. Sometimes it seems hopeless. I finally persuade her to come to the supermarket with me. And then the checker so rude grandmother says she won't ever go back." "They just don't have any respect for the elderly, do they?" Naro said. "And sometimes, little sister, I don't think you show her the respect she deserves either." "Me?" Soka was indignant. "What about you? You're not exactly humbling yourself for her advice all the time." This stopped him. "Well, it's different here." "Yes," she snapped. "I've noticed that." Then her voice softened. "I'm sorry, Naro. I do the best I can with your mother. But as you say, it's different here. And what she can tell us about coping with life in America when all she does is stay in the house dreaming of home." "Ah, so understanding America is the way to be respected then. If that's so, perhaps we should all fall on our knees and pray before young Ravi. Ha, or Sundara here." Oh no, how American Sundara has become. A topic Soka relished and Sundara loathed. So unfair to be criticized for everything right down to what Soka claimed was her overly bold way of walking. If only her aunt could see what an outsider she was at school. What did Soka think? That she could go into an American school and squat in the cafeteria to eat as though she was still half a world away? Would that have satisfied her? At home, Sundara was too American. At school, she felt painfully aware of not being American enough. She didn't fit in anywhere. Please don't start on this, she thought. Fortunately, Soka seemed more inclined at the moment to analyze grandmother's problems. "She has nothing like school or a job to force her out of the house. If only we could find something." She considered for a moment, then jumped up. "As for me, I have more than enough to do. That's the answer, you see. Work. Keep busy. Then there's less time to brood. Niece, you will start the dinner tonight, so we can eat as soon as I get home. I promise to take the new family shopping for warm clothes tonight." "They're having a sale at value time," Sundara offered, trying to be helpful. Unable to bargain here, Soka liked to at least find the best sales. But Soka waved away the suggestion. "Last time I bought a jacket there, the threads unraveled after one washing. I thought everything here would be good quality, but you really have to be careful." Sundara nodded. The jacket she'd put on layaway for herself was at one of the nice stores downtown, but Sokka would consider that an extravagance, and would like it even less if she knew Sundara hadn't waited to walk in with cash. But after one more payday she'd have enough, and that beautiful plum-colored jacket were gone by then. She scooped out the last of the noodles from the pot into her bowl, causing her aunt to cluck. "That's your third bowl. I don't know why you're not fat. All the food you eat and nothing but sitting in school all day." "I'm sorry," Sundara said meekly. "I should have asked if either of you would like the rest. Would you?" Naro shook his head, and Sokka said she'd had enough. But she was getting a bit plump herself lately. So Sundara ate the noodles, but Sokka had spoiled her appetite. Once at the door, Sundara began to breathe easier. Nothing said about Polk Simone. She sank into her bus seat, thinking maybe she'd be lucky this time. Maybe they wouldn't find out. If she stayed away from Jonathan from now on, there was still a chance she might save herself. And after all, was he really worth the risk? Maybe Kathy was right. Maybe she was just a curiosity to him. Maybe she was making a fool of herself, letting herself care about him, as if there were the slightest chance they could ever belong in the same world. Besides, she already had one failure on her conscience, the death of Sokka's baby. There was no more room in her life for mistakes, large or small. Yes, what she must do was quite clear. She could not think of him. She would not waste any more time looking for him in the halls. She would study hard during lunch and the lunch hour the way she used to, and when her parents came, they would be proud. She would not talk to him. She would not look at him. She would forget it ever happened. And then the school bus pulled up to the patio. Through the tinted window, she saw him standing by the flagpole. What was he doing there all by himself? Usually she didn't see him until international relations. He looked so nice. She loved those faded jeans and the flannel shirt of his. The morning sun shone on his blonde hair as he tapped his notebook against his thigh and looked around. Her heart pounded. Her knees felt weak as she stood up in the bus aisle. She must pretend she hadn't seen him and walk past into the building. With so many students milling around, maybe she'd escape his notice. But when she stepped off the bus, he hurried right toward her. He had been waiting especially for her. He knew which bus she rode. "Sundara, I've got to talk to you." He led her away from the others. His hand on her arm felt nicer than it should have. "Have you been explaining that little scene yesterday? Is that guy your boyfriend or something?" She glanced up at him in surprise. "Oh no, he'd be mad to hear you say that. We not the same class." "So? Lots of girls go out with older guys, I thought." "Not class in school, social class, don't you know?" "Oh, too hard to explain now." She looked over her shoulder. "Were they being watched?" "But why'd you run off then?" "Because he see us. With my people, everyone watch everyone else. He will talk." "We were just sitting there." "But I am a girl and you are a boy." "You noticed that too, huh?" "Oh, you make fun." Her voice wavered between a giggle and a wail. Her cheeks were warm. "I could get in trouble. How many times do I have to tell you, in Cambodia, a girl doesn't go with a boy alone." "You're in America now." "Oh, is that so?" She made a face. "Sometime I forget." He grinned. "Meet me for lunch." Jonathan, so persistent. Was it possible he really didn't understand how blunt you sometimes had to be with Americans? But the longer she stayed there with him in the fresh morning air, the easier it was to let herself be persuaded. The harder it was to tell him they must not see each other. Sokka had a strong power over her, but so did Jonathan. And right now, as he stood looking at her with those strange and lovely blue eyes, she just liked him, liked the way he made her feel, liked the way he was banishing her nightmares by stealing into her dreams. Was it that so terrible? After all, it was not as if staying away from him would bring the baby back to life. "Okay," she said, "I meet you." And her heart beat with the most extraordinary mixture of joy and fear.